afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Notre Dame Stadium.
Zibikowski trying to get to the outside. He has blockers in front. Tom Zibikowski, along the beat, shakes him off to the 5 and touchdown. And now it is down. It is over. And the Irish have knocked off number 1 Clemson.
Brady Quinn looking, pump fakes, he rolls to the near side, throws it, it's caught by Samaja, inside the 20, inside the 10, he's going in, Notre Dame has scored!
Jones is the back, he's got it again, and Jones a lot of room, Tony Jones makes a cut, gets a block, and scores! Is that the play that will seal the playoff bid for Fighting Irish?
Welcome to Sons of Saturday. I'm Tyler Wojak. Alongside me, as always, is Luke Smith, and we're recording this on Sunday morning following Notre Dame's loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes, 21-10 in the season opener. This is our first Sunday morning taping after a game. In the past, we usually released episodes on Tuesdays and Fridays during the season, but this year we plan on releasing an episode every Sunday the day after a game, and then another episode later in the week on Thursday to preview Notre Dame's next opponent, wrap anything up from the week of Notre Dame football that we haven't talked about already. As for last night, we talked about this game for pretty much 9 straight months, and there certainly is a lot more for us to talk about now that the game is past, and we got our first real look at the 2022 Fighting Irish football team. We'll break down what we saw and how we're feeling about the team going forward. But before we get going, though, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like this video below and subscribe to our channel. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe there as well.
This episode is sponsored by Hoss Company, a lifestyle brand that's about being the best version of yourself. Be the Hoss. The Hoss lives life without reservations, without doubt, and ready to answer the call each and every day. Be sure to check out their website at bethehoss.com and use promo code SONS, that's S-O-N-S, for 15% off on your next order. Check it out.
This episode is also sponsored by Roback. Shop game-changing activewear with Roback for those who crave activity. Use the promo code SONSND to get 20% off your next order in the entire store at roback.com. That's RHOBACK.com. We've been really pushing their new Shamrock Polo, and we've already heard from a few of our listeners who used the promo code to buy it. We've heard nothing but great reviews. It looks good, it feels good, and you should get one yourself using the promo code SONSND at roback.com. All right. Let's get to it. Luke, you and I have talked about this before. Whenever Notre Dame loses, the next morning, there's like a very specific type of hangover because of the loss. A lot of times it's because we're actually hungover, and the loss just sort of compounds the shitty feeling in our bodies. But that's not the case today, though. For me, at least, I worked all day yesterday for my day job covering college football at Fox Sports, and this feeling of dread is entirely due to the game and not alcohol. But I'll ask you, how are you feeling about the game now that you've had a chance to sleep on it?
Pretty apathetic. It kind of is what it is. I don't really know that I have a lot of major takeaways here. I thought, obviously, and we'll get more into this, I thought the defense looked totally fine, if not really good, outside of the one play where we blitzed 2 safeties. And then the offense, I did not look good. The offensive line, those fears that I had about them were kind of realized last night. It is just game 1. Obviously, Jarrett Patterson didn't play, so we'll give him some time, but that was not great. I don't really know what to make of Tyler Buckner's performance. I thought he was fine all in all and didn't really have a lot of help with the protection and play calling. But at halftime when we were up 10-7, I was at a wedding. I turned to this guy. I'm like, this feels like the Georgia 2019 game.
Same score.
We're only throwing to tight ends. Our receivers can't get separation, and it just seems like we're playing really kind of safe, scared, and we're hanging around. And we're winning the game, and I don't think we're going to be able to, extend this lead. And we had our opportunities, and that's kind of exactly how it played out.
Yeah, I think that's a frustrating thing for me, is that Notre Dame had a lot of chances, and I just hate losing to Ohio State. I figure we're going to get 2 chances at them.
They are literally the worst fan base in sports. I think I would rather be in jail than an Ohio State fan.
They are certainly
they're one of the worst teams to be a fan of.
They are certainly the most online of any fan base ever. I mean,
they
shout
were
out to them.
Fucking idiots in our
we got a lot of
too.
we got
idiots.
a ton of engagement from them, but most of it was just ridiculous, and we have to beat them next year. Enough is enough. I grew up in Cleveland, so I've got a lot of family ties to Ohio State. A lot of family that doesn't care as much about football as the Ohio State fan side of the family, and we just keep losing to them. So I really have nothing to say when I hear it from these Ohio State fans, and it is what it is. Like right now, they're just a better program than Notre Dame. This team is better than Notre Dame, but it's still Notre Dame had their chances last night, and that was the most frustrating part about it. Is the entire sports world was focused on this game. We saw all the celebrities that were around on the sidelines. It was the biggest game of the day in college football. Game day was there. And the whole world is focused on Notre Dame. And I thought, on one hand, yeah, it's great that we didn't just get run off the field like we have done in several other occasions when this was the case for Notre Dame and they were on this kind of stage. I can't really get excited about only losing by 11. Like we're past that. And don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of positives to take away from this game. And I picked Notre Dame to lose by 2 touchdowns, so this isn't really a surprise. But it's frustrating when you have these opportunities, you have a lead in the second half, and you just can't even get close to the finish line. I don't know. I think that's what sort of bothered me the most the next morning.
Yeah, it's hard to get excited about the season in general, like, to be honest. Like, and like, that's not to say that I don't think they can still have a very good season. They can, but it's like, you lose the first game, it's really hard to come back from that. Like, it just takes a lot of wind out of your sails, and like, they've won one big game our entire 25 or 26 years on Earth. Like, I'm just sick of this shit. Like, stop fucking losing these games.
All right, before we get too down in the dumps here, I will say that this doesn't really change my perception of what this team is capable of doing this season. Fortunately,
no.
They've got 3 games in 4 weeks to sort of figure it out before their next real tough opponent, we assume, in BYU. And I think that's sort of where we can move on. It's like, this game happened. We knew what Notre Dame was up against. Obviously, losing Jarrett Patterson, probably their second best player on offense, showed itself in the game. The interior of the offensive line really took a beating, especially in the first half. But again, we knew that Ohio State is probably going to be one of the top 3 teams in the country. Notre Dame certainly showed that they can hang with them. They've got a few more opportunities left on the schedule to show that they're a really good team. So does your preseason expectation change now that we've seen one game?
No, not really. But it's not because of anything I saw or didn't see last night. Like, last night just felt kind of weird. Like, it kind of felt like like, maybe it was because I wasn't there. But like, just like the concept of last night's game happening, it was just very hard to wrap my head around that. I don't know why that was. Like, it snuck up on me. It was kind of a weird game, I felt like. And I just don't know if there's any tangible takeaways I can really have. So like, I don't know. Like I said, like, I don't think we're going to learn anything about this team for a while. Like, you mentioned BYU. They have a really good offense. Their defense is terrible. We might not learn anything until Clemson, to be honest. And that's, like, in November. So,
well, if we learn anything, it could be bad. Like, if we're learning, after...
We're not going to learn anything good. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better way to look at it, is, like, assuming... if Notre Dame's struggling to move the ball on a North Carolina defense that gave up 61 points to Appalachian State.
And 40 in the fourth quarter.
Then we might learn something that we really didn't want to know, and that might be Notre Dame's offense isn't that good. Now, I'm not there yet. I think Notre Dame's offense faced either the toughest or the second toughest test they'll face all season long, on the road, in a hostile environment, in Tyler Buckner's first start. Notre Dame's offense only ran 48 plays. So it's really hard to take a lot from that. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I think there are some really positive things we can say. Yes, we have to address this right now. Ohio State did not have arguably their best player, Jackson Smith and Jigba, on the team. Now, they still have plenty of other really good wide receivers, but the defense, and particularly the secondary, looked really, really impressive. And I'm going to assume that Isaiah Foskey and Jason Ademilola are going to figure it out because, let's be honest, I think last night was a pretty disappointing performance, not just from those two, but really the entire defensive line, because we went into it thinking if Notre Dame's going to win, the defensive line has to be dominant. You and I both said probably the best position group on the team. They didn't play like it. Now, will that be the case the rest of the season? I don't think so. But overall, we have to be pretty impressed with how the defense played against an offense that we knew was super high-powered. It was the first time in the Ryan Day era that they didn't put up double-digit points in the first half. So I was pretty concerned about the defense, how they look going into it. I think that's the biggest takeaway I can take from this is Notre Dame's defense is probably a college football playoff level defense.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned it. Like the big guys did not play big. Foskey was pretty invisible. Adamalola didn't really do a whole lot. Cam Hart was pretty bad. Now I don't know how healthy he was or not, but he did not look that good out there, and he got benched for a while. And I don't know if that was injury related or what. But you look at some of the other guys out there. I think Tariq Bracy had a great game. Clarence Lewis, I thought, played pretty well too. He is my guy, so I'm going to back
It's
him
big
up
for
here.
you. You started the Clarence Lewis revenge tour, and after game one, I think he led the team in tackles.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
Well, that might not be a good thing, but
That's actually not
honestly,
good when the corner leads the team in tackles.
Yeah.
Not great.
I thought Benjamin Morrison looked really good for a freshman. He had 29 snaps, I think. I think that was a little bit more than probably anybody expected. Maris Leofau, who it sounded like wasn't really healthy during camp, had a great game last night, I thought. So, yeah, there's definitely some positive. I mean, Brandon Joseph knocked Jackson Smith and Jigba out of the game. That's what you should do. So, there were good things like in that defense. Certainly, it just would have been nice to have your star power show up a little bit, and because when you can get those performances that we got from some supporting cast players with your stars, then I think you really have something.
Yeah. Like when you look back at the Notre Dame Clemson game in the regular season of 2020, Notre Dame stars, the guys they needed to play like stars, they did exactly that. Ian Book had the best game of his life. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah probably had the best game of his life. So you got that from your best players, and then the complementary players, when they had really strong games, it just amplified. Notre Dame was able to win. That wasn't the case here for Notre Dame, and that's disappointing. But again, it's a season opener, and I think that this team, what we saw last night, is going to be a lot different than what we see, hopefully, in November against Clemson. Now, I think we've touched on it a little bit. The offense certainly struggled last night, and that was a concern for both of us going into the season. We knew we were thin at wide receiver. The offensive line, which you felt was going to be a strength, certainly didn't play like a strength last night. A friend of the program, Greg Flamung, tweeted this out earlier today that Tyler Buckner was pressured on 39% of his dropbacks. That's even worse than the Florida State season opener last year when the line was really, really bad. And obviously Ohio State's defense is a little bit better. But for me, the biggest thing about the offense is when we talked about this game going into it, we figured the way Notre Dame is going to win. We pointed to the Michigan game last year against Ohio State and the Oregon game saying those teams were able to run the ball. Utah was able to run the ball. Notre Dame has to be able to run the ball really effectively in order to win. They didn't do that, and they didn't win. So looking at the offense, to me, I think is pretty simple. Now, obviously, Tommy Rees is partially responsible for that. He's back in the familiar role of getting criticized by the entire Notre Dame fan base. We can get into that. But specifically on the offense, where do you think it all went wrong in terms of the lack of production, and what do you take from this game?
There's a couple things. I think one being the line, like it just was the protection was not there. I also think so. The play calling was certainly questionable, but I think we're hurt by the fact that we have fucking 4 receivers. I just don't really know what you can do. Like this was the other point that I was made why I was like that Georgia game, because pretty much all of our targets were to tight ends, and then I think I'm trying to pull this up right now. If you look at our targets, I feel like we barely threw to receivers at all. It was either Chris
there wasn't a
out of the backfield.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Michael Mayer had 5 catches. Lorenzo Styles had
Nobody
1.
else had more than a catch.
Styles had 1. Lenzy had 1. Salerno had 1. And that was it from the receivers.
Yeah. So I don't know what you're supposed to do there. That's just really disheartening. Also, on the other side of the ball for Ohio State, Tommy Eichenberg, brother of Liam, had the game of his life. 2 sacks, 6 tackles. He was a guy that Notre Dame didn't recruit. They didn't think he was good enough to play for them, despite his brother being an All-American. I know it did not sit very well with his All-American brother. The Notre Dame never looked at him, really. And it showed last night. He had the game of his life, so that was also awesome to see, of course.
Yeah, the Eichenberg revenge game, it was on full display. I'm with you, the receivers and the lack of production there. It's not, shocking to us. No. We knew what the team had. I will say it was a little bit frustrating that Lorenzo Styles, we go to him on the first play of the game with an easy throw, and he breaks a tackle. I think he's clearly one of the better playmakers on the offense.
I don't know why we didn't do more of that.
It didn't seem like we had a bunch of easy throws for Buckner to make. Like, I understand
No.
the line was getting pressure, but we weren't running many slants. We ran a couple screens, like some swing stuff to Mayer or Tyree in the flat. But I would have liked to see Buckner get in a little bit more of a rhythm, getting the receivers the ball. But, part of that is also on the receivers. They weren't really getting open. Michael Mayer was getting double teamed pretty much every time, and Notre Dame was in an obvious passing situation, and even sometimes early in the downs when they weren't. Now, again, we're recording this on Sunday morning. Haven't really had a chance to go back and look at the entire game again. But Notre Dame's receivers were going to have to win one-on-one battles. They got a couple. I mean, Matt Salerno made one of the best catches. Then he followed that up later in the game with a kind of a crippling offensive PI call. Now, I would say that was a weak call. The ball was uncatchable, but I think the bigger thing there is that in two of our designed shots that we're trying to take, we're going to Matt Salerno one-on-one.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
No
disrespect, but that's
to
just
Matt
where we're at.
Salerno. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's fucking ridiculous. It is. I'm sorry, it just is. On the play where he had the catch, I literally had the text crafted like seeing Matt Salerno on the field on third down is just a disgusting feeling, and then he made that catch, so I didn't send it. But yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's just not very. They were not fun to watch last night, and like I just never really had any hope that they were gonna do something.
Yeah.
And I don't think Ohio State's defense is that good. That's the problem. I really don't. Like they had a lot to overhaul from last year. They played well last night, but we should have been able to do more against them. Is my point. I don't. There was too much overhaul for them to have that all fixed in week one and looking like a top 5 defense or whatever.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame certainly made them look a little bit better than they were, but you got to give them credit. Like their athletes were flying around. Their defense was very fast, and there's still some questions for them at linebacker, but their D-line was all over Notre Dame. And it could turn out, we'll obviously see these next few weeks, if Notre Dame just completely dominates these teams, which they should in Marshall and Cal. Mm-hmm. If Notre Dame their line figures it out and they come together and they start getting the push that we expect, then we can look at this game differently and say, okay, like Ohio State's defensive line was really good. They played better, and it makes a little bit more sense. Right now, we just don't know. So I think we have to talk about it wasn't really exciting to watch this Notre Dame offense, and I would agree with the fan base's frustration there. That one drive, the Notre Dame scoring drive, I have to say Tommy Rees was dialing it up. A lot of creativity there. The fake toss, the pass to Bowman in the middle. I thought the play calling there was really, really good, really fun, and that was what we expected going into the season. You and I talked about how excited we were to see what a Tommy Rees offense looked like with a guy like Tyler Buckner under center. And then in the second half, it was extremely conservative. And particularly the second 18 play following the pass interference and the third and 18 play, the QB draw was really frustrating. And I don't know what the call there was, because on second 18, I think that might have been an RPO. Buckner gave it away when he probably shouldn't have. On the third down, it looked like Buckner audibled at the line of scrimmage, and then they ran the QB draw. If the calls were what they were, coming from Rees down to the field, and Rees called the QB draw, I think that's lame, and it was just sort of like, all right, we're not even really going to try here. I understand you don't want to commit a turnover, but it's pretty disappointing. But we don't know if that was the case. Buckner might have given the ball up when he shouldn't have, and I think he might have audibled to that draw. If that's the case, then we got to put the blame on Buckner there for being a little bit more aware of the situation and how the Notre Dame offense was. But really, what do you make of those two plays specifically? Because I think that's the one that fans look at the most when they're criticizing Rees and the offense in this game.
I mean, I think you hit on it. We don't really know what it was. I think it also goes back to what I said before. Like, it just seems like they're limited by their personnel. Like, they just, like, I don't know if he just doesn't believe in the guys out there or whatever it is, because it kind of seemed like that. Like, because they didn't really do a whole lot to make things interesting. And I have to believe that they feel inhibited by what they have.
Yeah, it's sort of reminiscent of Notre Dame's play calling against Oklahoma State, where they forfeited the run game before the game even started, similar to Georgia in 2019, where they're like, we're not going to run at all. This one, it felt like we're not going to take any deep shots. We're not going to really try to do anything on the outside that much. We're going to try to ground and pound, which was actually pretty effective for the first half. They kept the ball away from Ohio State. The defense held its own. I understand why that was the game plan, but it became pretty clear, absent of that one drive when Estimate kind of got it rolling and Notre Dame scored on that drive, the running game just wasn't there. I mean, they finished with what? 76 rushing yards? If you told me that before the game, and you said Notre Dame's going to have 76 rushing yards, I'm like, oh my God, we're going to lose 41-3. So I get it. I understand why fans are frustrated with some of the play calling, but I don't really know how you can call a game that much differently when your line is getting abused, your quarterback is getting pressured pretty much every time he drops back, or so it feels like. You can't run the ball, and your receivers aren't winning one-on-one matchups. I don't really see what else is there to do. You know what I mean? It just seems like,
I don't know.
Again, it wasn't fun to watch. Like when Notre Dame went down 21-10, it felt over right away.
Well, somebody was like trying to have a really intense conversation with me at that point in time, so I kind of missed that drive, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, I mean, like at that point, I honestly was like, all right, just please don't let them score again. Like we can't fuck up this cover.
Yeah.
So
it sounded like when Notre Dame trotted out our punter. Hey, by the way, shout out Sot, dude. He got some use.
He did. He really did.
He had that one line drive punt that wasn't great, but he had a couple boots. So I mean, it's good to know that if we have some offensive struggles, we can at least have some faith in this Harvard transfer. So good for him.
We've said this like 2 years in a row, just talking about how fucking good our punter is. I'm tired of talking about how good the punter is.
Yeah, I think they asked Freeman after the game, like, "Hey, good punting," and he's like, well, "I mean, yeah, but it's not really good. It's not what I want to be talking about after the game."
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Buckner. Tough to really take any big impressions from this game. But in the first half, I was really pleased with how comfortable he looked running the offense in this really hostile environment. His first ever start. He opens the game 8 for 8. Obviously, second half doesn't go that well. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Notre Dame has something in Buckner.
I think he was totally fine. Didn't somebody text in our thread saying he blows? What a fucking idiot, whoever said that.
We got some text last night. And again, I'm not going to hold anyone to what they say after like probably 20 beers and the frustration after Notre Dame lost. Like I saw.
I will. I will.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're on top of it.
Anyways, I think he was fine. Like I don't think he was helped that much by play calling or protection. But if you told me we don't turn the ball over and we hold Ohio State to 21 points, I think we probably win the game. Like actually, I definitely would have thought we won the game. And both of those things happened. So, yeah, I thought he was fine. Like, I'm excited to see how he looks these next couple weeks. Like, I'm really hoping that now, like, this whole thing with Freeman is they just pour it on people the next 3 weeks. Like, put up 70 on Marshall. Put up 60 on Cal. Just fucking run them out of the gym. Field, sorry, not gym. But you get what I'm saying. Like, just run them out of the gym. And that's what I'm hopeful to see. And, like, when you're more talented than somebody, show it. And I think that's what we're going to see the next couple weeks. So we'll see how he looks. But, like, I was totally fine with that. It really wasn't the game anybody expected. I think 21-10, I don't think anybody would have predicted that score. So, yeah, I don't know. Just kind of a weird night in Central Ohio.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. Season openers are usually weird.
It looked like it was raucous there. I mean, so the sound wasn't really on where I was watching, but like it looked like the place was jumping. It was just a sea of red. We need to do a better job with that at our own home games with the green because we've never had anything like that.
No. I'm going to be honest. I feel pretty nervous next year about that home game against Ohio State. I'm concerned we're going to be seeing a whole lot of red in Notre Dame Stadium again. Yeah. 106,000 people. That's just insane to me. How many people were at that game? Is
that what it was?
Yeah. And by all accounts, Notre Dame fans showed out. I got some texts from some Ohio State friends who said that like they were impressed with the amount of Irish fans in Columbus. So that's good. I just hope that all those fans don't sell their seats next year at the home game, and we can keep it.
I just got a text from a friend in Columbus who took a Greyhound from Chicago to Columbus. And his Greyhound back just got canceled, so he's stuck in Columbus.
Dude, did you see? I don't know who has it worse, your friend or Utah, because after they got upset in Florida, their plane wasn't working, so they were stuck in a Gainesville airport all night.
That's terrible. Well, at least they weren't stuck in elevators like the Virginia Tech coaching staff, which talk about dumpster fires. Losing to Old
Yeah.
Dominion in the season opener. Yikes.
Yeah, that was tough. When I was in Vegas a few weeks ago, I mean, the Sunday after a Vegas trip is always just a top 5 worst day of the year, and there was a fake shooting at the Vegas airport.
A
There was
swatting?
a loud bang, and someone yelled guns, so it sent the entire airport into chaos, caused me to miss my flight. So then we had to rent a car and drive from Vegas to LA. So that was another just terrible day. So I don't, just a lot of really bad Sundays lately for a lot of us. All right, let's get back on track. I think we've hit on all the major things. Offense wasn't great. Now we're going to have a chance here to really learn about Marcus Freeman because he's 0-2 as head coach. That's a fact. Now he's 0-2 against 2 top 10 teams. So obviously context must be taken into account here. But now Notre Dame plays Marshall next week. Like you said, they should absolutely run it up. And I'm going to be really interested to see how Marcus Freeman attacks this week. I have a feeling that the side of Marcus Freeman that doesn't always come through in the media, the one who was raised by a military father who was waking up at 5 a.m. and very drill sergeant mentality, I think that's going to come through this week. And I'm going to be honest, I don't envy those Notre Dame football players because I have a feeling practices this week and film, they're not going to be a whole lot of fun.
I hope not. I hope it's fucking hell.
Before we wrap up here, I feel like we should spotlight some really positive performances because there were definitely some on Notre Dame, and I want to highlight them. For me, the first one we got to mention, you mentioned it before, is Benjamin Morrison. I mean, holy shit. Ashton came on last week and said that the freshman corners were probably 2 of the most impressive people in camp. She said Morrison and Mickey could each get like 20 snaps, and I sort of pushed back thinking that was crazy. It was apparently not. Morrison not only played 20 snaps, he might be the best corner on the team. Like, maybe not today, but he's really good. And if Mickey, and if he becomes a player that we think he can be, that cornerback duo of Morrison and Mickey, that has the potential to be the best cornerback duo they've had in since the Shane Walton, Vontez Duff days?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I was very impressed with how he looked last night. And we haven't had a good secondary in a while. So yeah, that's definitely, promising. I mean, we mentioned Tariq Bracy too. Like, he's playing like a 5th-year senior. Did DJ Brown not play that much last night? By the way, this is just a random aside.
I feel like I didn't see him
I saw Houston on the field way too much.
See, again, this is sort of the bad thing about going the morning after, but we wanted to give sort of an instant reaction to this. If he was on the field, he was sort of invisible. There was never a moment where I was like, wow, DJ Brown, great play. But I don't know really what to make of that.
All I know is that I saw Griffith on the field for the touchdowns. So that's par for the course.
That play when Williams and Ohio State, when he stepped out of bounds, but there was 80 yards of green in front of him. Notre Dame caught a huge break there. That was Griffith and the missed tackle. DJ Brown had 2 tackles. Griffith had 4. Joseph had 4. So, yeah. I also thought Estime, he runs hard. He's hard to bring down. He was getting tackled pretty much the moment he got the ball on all of his carries. So, it was encouraging to see him. Buckner running the ball looked pretty good. I think Ohio State just has really good athletes on defense, so Buckner was never able to get the edge. I would assume that when Notre Dame plays Marshall and Kyle, he's going to be able to get the edge. But I don't know. Any other performances really stand out to you?
No, not really. It's hard to glean a lot from the offense. I thought Estime ran hard. The stats don't really reflect that, but I thought he did. There's just not a whole lot. I mean, Michael Mayer was what we thought he would be. I also honestly thought they could have targeted more. It seemed like he was open every play. I thought they could have given him the ball a little bit more, to be honest with you. That one catch he had where he then fumbled and recovered his own fumble was an incredible catch. But that's what you expect, right? He's the one guy that kind of did show up last night of the stars. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of eager to see just when Jarrett Patterson's going to be back, what that line looks like with him, because they could have used him last night.
Certainly so. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him until BYU.
You think so? I was going to say UNC, but...
UNC, actually, that's probably a good point. I don't know. It's hard to say. Now that the Ohio State game is passed, do you say, all right, let's wait until you're 100%, or do you just try to get him on the field as quickly as possible to try to get some cohesion among that group?
I think you do need to get him to 100%. I'm just kind of curious where he's at because like he was suited up last night, and like I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know. But I think you try to get him as healthy as possible first.
Yeah. All right. You got any final thoughts on this game before we wrap it up?
Right. No. All I got is being an Ohio State fan would be fucking miserable. Those guys are fucking losers. But that's all I got.
Well, I'm sure they'll hear you and be in our comments, or maybe now that the game is over, they moved on to their next opponent, but I guess we'll just have to find out. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Sons of Saturday. Thank you for watching or listening from wherever you are. We will be back again on Thursday. In the meantime, please subscribe, rate, and review on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sons of Sat Irish. Enjoy the holiday weekend, and we'll see you guys in a few days.